Welcome to the Consulting Success Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Zapersky. In this podcast, we'll dive deep into the world of elite consultants, where you'll learn the strategies, tactics, and mindset to grow a highly profitable and successful consulting business. Hey, it's Michael Zapersky, and today I'm very excited to have Craig Wortmann joining us. Craig, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm very excited to have you on the show here today. For those who don't know you, just take a moment, Craig, and explain what you do.
Absolutely. It's kind of funny. I always say I wear three primary hats, which is kind of nutty. They seem to clash together in a really fun and interesting and productive way. So I'm a clinical professor of entrepreneurship and innovation at the Kellogg Graduate School. So at the business school at Northwestern, I teach a number of courses ranging from entrepreneurship to communications to sales. So that's one of my hats. Another hat is I am also what's called a venture partner, Michael, with the Pritzker Group Venture Capital out of Chicago. So I spend time trying to help our portfolio companies grow, again, mostly on the sales and messaging and go-to-market front. Mm-hmm. And then my final hat is I'm a consultant. So I run a decade-old sales consulting firm called Sales Engine. And what we do is help companies build and tune their sales engine. So I split my time between those three life loves of mine and just have a lot of fun.
How do you manage that?
It's funny that you ask. So here we are this week. On Monday of this week, I taught at Kellogg a special session of my class that I call Life Hacks. And I taught it with a really good friend of mine who's an amazing woman. And we just talked about how do you balance all this stuff? And it really comes down to what you and your audience are probably already thinking about. And that's being just incredibly organized and incredibly disciplined. I've really learned, perhaps we'll dig into this in the conversation, I've learned that one of the key things that I do have control over in my life is discipline. And so I tend to be a pretty disciplined guy, not always, not 24 hours a day. I'm not crazy, but I am pretty disciplined. And that allows me to really be careful and cognizant of the balance of the different three masters that I serve. So
it's interesting. I remember back when I was in high school, I was very competitive in track and field, and I would be training 6 days a week. I never was into school, never really into studies, but the time that I actually got into track and field and joined a club and became very serious about it and was training 6 days a week was actually the time where my studies improved the most. Yet I had the least amount of time to work on those studies, but it was because I was applying exactly as you're talking about, this discipline, this focus, and this concentration to it that otherwise before that kind of all over the place.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I mean, I sort of refer to that as enforced discipline. It's really an interesting phenomenon that you do. I feel exactly the same way. You get more productive as you add more to your plate. Now, there's a point in time where that becomes counterproductive.
Sure.
An old mentor of mine used to always say, Craig, I can take the most high-performing superstar and make him or her unproductive by just simply giving them too much to do. So you have to be careful.
Yes. All right. Well, this is not where I was planning to start this conversation today, but I think it's a valuable place, I hope, for people to kind of get that perspective. So, Craig, you really are a true sales expert. I mean, not only do you teach it, you consult on it, you've also kind of been there and done that, built companies and sold them, which is my experience as well. And I believe that kind of unique perspective of actually building your own companies and selling them is one that provides a different perspective, a very valuable one. But you got started at IBM, I believe. Was that your first experience to sales?
It was. So from the U.S. federal government, and IBM took a chance on me, which I am forever thankful for, because they not only taught me technology, I mean, from a bigger standpoint, they taught me business because I came from the government. So I really didn't know anything about business. I was a political science major in college, a little bit of dabbling in math. IBM really took me under their wing like they did a lot of young people. They call it dipping us in blue. And they dipped us in blue, and I am forever grateful for that experience. It was terrifying. I covered 13 zip codes on the south side of Chicago, really had very little idea what I was doing, got a lot of mentorship, a lot of coaching from bosses, good and bad, and sort of made my way. And, fast forward to that, was a long time ago, fast forward to today. One of the things I always say is I'm been so lucky to study this, to be a practitioner and a salesperson, but also study sales and teach it. And I always say to people, I can't find the bottom of it. It is just so interesting. And just when I think I've got my arms around it, I go, yep, I got it. I'm an expert on this. It changes. I have to learn some different angle. One of the things that's really fun about serving as a part of the Pritzker Group is just going through these motions over and over with portfolio companies and just trying to identify the challenges and help them push through it. Oh, God, that's so much fun. And then to take it in the classroom and teach it and consult on it, it's a blast.
So you mentioned challenges, and many consultants feel uncomfortable with the idea of sales, yet it really is the blood that runs through every company and is necessary to survive and to prosper. Why is sales so scary for people in your experience?
Michael, it's a fantastic question. I think it is the question. And I'm going to start from sort of the abstract level of analysis here up top with something that's obvious to you and your audience. There's this obvious tension between when you're a consultant and you start a consulting firm, you are the firm, you are the delivery vehicle, but the tension is when you're delivering, you're not selling. And when you're selling, you're not delivering. So how the heck do you balance this? So at that level of abstraction, now come down a little bit and let's get a little bit more concrete. To answer your question, I think there's sort of two things. One is, and we explore this in a really interesting way in my classroom, one is a stereotype of salespeople that we are somehow smarmy, manipulative, sleazy. I do this word association exercise in my MBA class for the last 10 years, and it's just fascinating. And I do it with executives. I do it outside the classroom all the time. I do it at somebody every week. And you get this really interesting list of words that are half positive and half negative. You get persistent, confident, that sort of thing too.
Sure.
Under salespeople. And then I put up another word and I say, okay, now do it for this one. And I put entrepreneur. And you can imagine what happens. I mean, it's all positive. Visionary, job creator, world changer, risk taker, all these sorts of wonderful things that we all aspire to. And I always say to people, what's going on here? Like, why is manipulative, sleazy, smarmy? And look, that's real. I'm not disavowing that people have those words. Those are my words too. I've come across yucky people. We all have. But what I wonder is, I don't wonder, I believe this, it's my point of view. I think we as consultants, we get in our own way when we say, oh, well, the salespeople, those are those people. Guess what? We are salespeople. And so that's number one. We've got to adopt the mindset, all the good, all those pluses, all those good things that people say about salespeople. Persistent, aggressive. Aggressive is a good word. Aggressive in a right way, not annoying, but aggressive. Incredible follow through, knowledgeable, quick, confident. Those are wonderful things to be. And I don't think we often associate those with ourselves as consultants. We want to be thought leaders, trusted advisors, super, super knowledgeable and domain experts. And by the way, those are wonderful things, but we've got to go through the selling motions. We have to sell. And so that brings me to sort of point number two, going down our continuum of abstraction to get really concrete. We need to get comfortable with making asks. It's remarkable when I consult to companies, when I consult to consultants, and I watch them in their selling motions. We do what's called ride-alongs in my business, and it's super fun to do, and it's incredibly informative because we learn a lot about the value proposition, the differentiators, how they're articulating it. But one of the things people often fail to do is just ask. Mm-hmm. If I'm good, if I'm a domain expert and I can deliver the goods, why can't I ask for something? Michael, we've just spent 3 months together. We've done what I think is some incredible work. We're seeing some emerging stellar results unfold. Would you be willing, Michael, to introduce me to 3 other people in your network who might benefit from the same thing? I don't care how you say that. And maybe that was not beautiful, but that's an ask. Mm-hmm. That should be no problem for me to do that. I've just begun to deliver for you, or I just have delivered for you. And I just see many of us shying away because we don't want to be that guy. And I think that's a real tragedy because I think we leave a tremendous amount of value on the table.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Let's take one of those words that you shared, aggressive, because you're right. A lot of people look at that word, and my experience working with hundreds of consultants personally, that's a word that holds a lot of people back because they don't want to come across as being too aggressive. So how do you define aggressive in a positive sense? And what does that actually look like in terms of actions? How should someone be aggressive in the right way?
It's a great question, Michael. It's more synonymous for me with the word inspiring. Like as consultants, we want to inspire people to make change. We want to inspire people to do differently, to do better. Why can't we be aggressive about that? And so to answer your question, I think aggression it's not me grabbing you by the shoulders and shaking you. That's not at all. It is saying to you, Michael, my God, is there an opportunity to get tremendous results from you? Let's do this. We need to do this now, not 3 months from now. Look at the results we can get. And if I have an articulated value proposition that's differentiated in the market, you should absolutely, here's what will not happen. You will not recoil from my quote unquote aggression. You will be inspired and you'll go, God, you're right. Let's do this thing. You're right. I'm going to push through the internal obstacles I have to getting this done. I'm going to get my head around the budget and get comfortable with it, Craig. Let's do this. That's how I define aggressive. Aggressive is a good word.
I like it. One of the areas that you consult on, Craig, is prospecting and helping organizations to get more clients and customers. For a consultant, what's your best advice? What specific steps should they be taking on a regular basis to prospect more effectively?
Well, I'm going to say a word and everybody in your audience is going to roll their eyes, but stay with me because it's really about, when you're a consultant, it's about networking. But let's get underneath that for a second, because this is a boot camp that I run both inside of Kellogg and out, again, probably at least once a week. And that is when you walk into a room of people, and I mean any room of people, and let's set it in a context. You're at an industry event, you're at a meetup, you're at a get together, however your audience will define that is fine. And let's just say, for argument's sake, for the purpose of our discussion, there's 100 people in that room and it's 5:30 at night. Just ask yourself, how do most people, consultants, even salespeople, by the way, how do people show up in that room? And I can tell you how they do it because we studied this. How most of us show up in that room is we walk in, we go to the bar, we grab a glass of wine or a club soda, whatever your drink is, and we talk to a handful of people. And that handful is usually 4 to 5 people in 90 minutes to 2 hours. And what I always say to people is that's the definition of drinking. That's what drinking looks like.
Right. Okay? Yeah.
Because that's not enough. If there's 100 people in the room, you should be able to talk to 30 people in 90 minutes. And I know what people are thinking. I've done this for a long time. Some of your audience is thinking, wait a minute, buddy. That is like super yucky and transactional. It's actually not. I would challenge everybody on this podcast to reconsider that. A 3-minute conversation can actually have substance. It is a substantive conversation if and only if you are ready. And readiness means you know exactly how to talk about your company. If I walked up to you tonight and I met you for the first time, I didn't know you, and you said, hey, I got a name badge on, says Craig on it. And you say, hey, Craig, I'm Michael. How are you? What do you do? I would say, Michael, I run a company called Sales Engine. What we do is help companies build and tune their sales engine. And then I would stop because that's all I need to say. And that's all I should say before I know more about you. And then we create, and we have worksheets and all kinds of tools on this, but we help people create what we call their on-ramp to conversation and their off-ramp to conversation. If Michael turns out.
So you're really looking at that initial conversation, Craig, as a opportunity to qualify whether you should be spending and investing more time with that person, whether it's in that conversation or another day.
That's exactly right, Michael. And that qualification, if you will, should happen within 2 minutes. And again, if you do it in live action, it's not yucky at all. Are you moving? Yeah, I call that working. You're working. You're not drinking. You're working. And so I'm moving you through that conversation to determine whether Michael may be a super nice guy and a guy I want to spend time with. He's not my guy, but he's a super nice guy, and I can make a decision. I want to have a 20-minute conversation. This guy's just an interesting guy. He's from Toronto. I love Toronto, blah, blah. That's fine. But make the conscious decision. Or I might say, nice guy, not my guy. I'm moving on. And I'm moving on within 3 minutes, and I'm going to do it in a gracious, subtle, nuanced, wonderful way that doesn't leave a bad taste in his mouth, and I am going to get back to work. And there is a model. I want to underscore the foundation of everything we do, which is based on knowledge, skill, and discipline. Because selling and consulting is a combination of 3 things: knowledge, skill, and discipline. It's not knowledge. And consultants in particular get in trouble because we over-index on knowledge. And look, we're consultants. We have to be smart. Don't get me wrong. I'm not disparaging knowledge, for God's sake. We have to accumulate knowledge, and we have to be able to apply that knowledge to our consulting projects, period. When we're selling, it's not about knowledge. It's about skill and discipline. Networking a room and talking to 30 people such that you can find 5 that will materially impact your next quarter of your consulting pipeline, that's skill and discipline. It's not at all about knowledge. So does that make sense?
Totally. I was just going to say, I speak with a lot of consultants who are looking to go to trade shows. And this is one thing that also comes up. A lot of people, their status quo is to just show up at a trade show and try and figure out who they should meet when they go there. And they're there, right? So they're wasting a lot of time, but really they can make so much more progress and see a better result by preparing beforehand, by identifying who they should actually be speaking with, setting up meetings beforehand so that when they go there, they're not spending time just walking the halls trying to identify prospective clients, but rather they're in back-to-back meetings. And that really provides a much greater result from going to a trade show.
While we work with a lot of seasoned and experienced consultants here at Consulting Success, I'm often contacted by new early-stage consultants. Invariably, the question I'm asked is, what are the steps I should take to become a successful consultant and grow my consulting business to my first 6 figures per year? Well, I'm excited to announce that we've opened the doors for our Momentum program. This is our most popular program for early stage consultants, and it has helped almost 1,000 consultants to start, run, and grow successful consulting businesses. It gives you the step-by-step plan to help you with your messaging, your fees, and pricing strategies, how to win more proposals, how to go to market more effectively, developing a marketing system to generate leads consistently, and so much more. And right now, until September the 19th, you can sign up for Momentum and get 50% off the regular price by going to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO. Only 100 spots are available to join Momentum and get 50% off. This deal is only available until September the 19th or until all 100 spots are gone. We won't be opening up new spots in this program for several months, so don't wait. Go to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO.
It does. And so that's why I always give people a heads up when I say the word networking. People kind of roll their eyes like, oh, yeah. Networking has three fluid motions that are all skill and discipline. And that is prepping beforehand, being really, really good and crisp and articulate and compelling and magnetic in the moment, and unbelievable follow through. It's interesting, Michael. So one of the things we do in our consulting firm is we study the follow-up that companies have from trade shows and events. And so we go on behalf of our clients. We don't introduce ourselves as employees of the company. We say, hey, we're advisors to the company. I'm wearing the company badge today. And you know what happens. You swipe your badge at 50 booths, and then guess what you get the day or two after the conference? You get follow-up emails from those. Most of them, some of them are not even talented enough to do that, but most of them you get follow-up, and guess what? They all look and sound exactly alike. And that is a tragedy. And so what we help people do is in that step 3 of networking. So the post-event action, the post-event selling motion is when you're good in that conversation. In step 2, when you're really good in that conversation, you're listening for certain things. And Michael happens to say he's from Toronto, but he spends a bunch of time in Vancouver. Guess what the first line of your follow-up email is? Michael, it was great to meet you. I enjoyed our conversation about Toronto, and thanks for that great restaurant recommendation. I'd love to engage in 10 minutes of a conversation. Right. So it just becomes completely different. Is it 100% conversion rate? Of course not. We're selling here. It's hard. But man, do you have a better chance.
Craig, let me ask you. So you mentioned for consultants that in your experience, networking can be highly effective in the way that you described it. How about at your current company, Sales Engine? Do you use the same approach now to attract clients, or is there another strategy or approach that is more effective for you to build your pipeline?
So yes is the short answer. The slightly longer answer is because I have 3 main hats that I wear, what I've attempted to do as a consultant and just as a person is to build a platform. And so what that means is I write quite a bit. I do a lot of speeches. That's what I call, and I do this with a smile on my face, I call it speech marketing. Because I always say, I say in my MBA classroom, selling is 1-to-1 and marketing is 1-to-many. So when you're giving a speech, it's 1-to-many, but that's still getting your message out. Now, what we're very careful to do is when we walk off a stage or walk off of the front of a room, now that's a one-on-one sale, and we very much switch gears. It's about listening. It's about asking questions and not telling. And that's what makes you magnetic in that moment. It's being present on social. It's being present on LinkedIn. It's writing and trying to produce content and videos that get out into the world. And it's just classic networking.
One of the challenges that a lot of consultants face when it comes to sales, Craig, is mindset. I mean, people connect their success to making a sale, winning a proposal, which means that when they don't make the sale, they don't enroll that new client, they feel defeated, right? Sometimes down and even depressed. It's like a roller coaster of highs and lows. But in this case, the lows can be very low. You start to doubt yourself. You're dealing with issues of self-esteem or lack of confidence. From your experience in working with many organizations, many sales teams and salespeople, how should consultants best deal with this?
I have 2 thoughts for you. One is, and they're both very tactical. One's immediately tactical. One's a little bit broader. The immediately tactical thing is thank people. And what I mean by that, Michael, is when you lose a deal, go all the way. And what I mean by going all the way is write a thank you note to the folks that made the decision and thank them and just say, I really appreciated the experience of doing this. Obviously disappointed that it turned out this way. May I engage you in a 10 or 15 minute call? And I really mean these terms here, these numbers, a 10 or 15 minute call to understand why we lost. So that's called a loss debrief or a win and loss debriefs. We do it for our company and we absolutely insist on it for our client companies because it is an unbelievable learning experience. You are not, let me emphasize this, you're not attempting to somehow manipulate them and win them back. That's not the motion here. The motion is just pure learning. And weird things that happens as a consequence of this is resilience. In talking through a loss and understanding really how you failed, it is an incredibly rewarding learning experience. It's hard, believe me, feedback is hard, but it's a great lesson learned and it does tend to get you back on track.
Great advice.
Yeah, it's really those two things. The broader answer, still tactical, is what I think we do, and we do this a lot with portfolio companies and others, is we put them in sprints. And so if you've just had a loss or if you've had a series of losses, time bound, make something time bound. So just take a week, a month. I don't know. It depends on your firm and depends on the sizing of your deals and stuff like that and your client set. But depending on your company, go into what we refer to as a sales sprint. I mean, we just did this with a portfolio company. Pipeline was suffering. Revenues were flat to declining. It was a scary situation. Everybody's bummed. And we said, okay, guys, we're going to do something really, really hard. This is not going to be fun. But we're going to go into a sales sprint and you are going to emerge in 3 months with a fat pipeline that is starting to get traction and having things move through it. And that's exactly what happened. And now notice my words though. I mean, this is hard. The metaphor that I use when I introduce this to our teams is because I rode crew for a year in college. I was terrible at it, but I rode crew. And one of the concepts you learn from crew is when the coxswain yells out power 10, Power 10 means you pull that oar as hard as you possibly can for 10 strokes. And forgive my language, but you often find yourself throwing up over the side of the boat after you do. It's that hard. That's what a sales sprint is. And every consultant listening to this, here's my tough love advice from a sales coach. You should have at least a few weeks out of every year to do a sprint. And a sprint fills your pipeline. You're not delivering, you're selling. And so you carve out a couple weeks, a few weeks, a month if you can, whatever it is, whatever works for your company. And you don't create PowerPoint slides. You don't create tools and deliverables. You sell.
Can you give us an example, Craig, of like what would that look like? Just tactically, a few steps that someone who's now listening, when they want to fill their pipeline, they're saying, okay, that sounds like a great idea, Craig. How do I do that? What are a few starting points that people could take action on?
Well, you can attend a bunch of networking events, go to every meetup that you possibly can. You can try to set up speeches. Now, I realize these things take time to set up. So look, you're talking to a salesman. I've been a salesman for a long time. So our standard answer is pick up the phone.
Right. Yeah.
If you want to do a sales sprint, you go to your database, your CRM, or go to Google, get 1,000 contacts and start calling and make 70 calls a day. And Michael, I mean this, make 70 calls a day. And again, your audience is probably going, holy crap, who is this madman?
Well, this is where people are thinking that's what would make me throw up, right? For you, it was the rowing. For others, it's that idea of making 70 calls that might make them tip over the edge.
Well, me too. I mean, look, I'm a salesman and that is not my idea. That's not my vision of an ideal day, is making 70 calls. But guys, I mean, this is the hard work of sales. We have to do this. And I can almost promise your audience that if they do this for some sustained period of time, and I don't mean a year and I don't mean 3 months, but a week, a few days, if you make a whole bunch of calls, and I don't know if it's 70, but it's not 4. If you make a whole bunch of calls, you will suddenly wake up in a couple of months and you'll be like, wait a minute, where did all this business come from? I can tell you exactly where that business came from. You're selling. That's what good selling looks like.
Is the goal of those calls to set up appointments? Is it to simply try and identify if there are issues and that you can help?
It's yes and yes. I love your question because I just want to dig down underneath it for a second. What you're not doing is trying to close deals. You're simply trying to start relationships. And if starting a relationship looks like me saying, Michael, would it be possible just to spend 5 minutes of your time understanding what your issues are such that I can understand whether I would ever be a potential resource? Could we do that? Or, Michael, could we do that over a cup of coffee? I don't want to do it now because I know I caught you off guard and you weren't expecting my call. And I really am thankful that you're even listening. But would you spend 5 or 10 minutes? Can I buy a cup of coffee and talk this over? I'm really trying to build my business. I think we have a really unique set of insights that could help you, but I don't know that. I need to know that. And a 10-minute coffee would be tremendously helpful to me. That's your motion. That's all you're asking for.
There we go. You heard it. So Craig, as all consultants experience, right, there's different stages that we go through. Early on, it's really about kind of finding our footing, figuring out what's working, what's not going to work, right? We're scrambling, we're kind of struggling. in many cases. Then you reach this place where the pipeline is now starting to really fill up. You have more income coming in. You're starting to enjoy more of your success. But then you reach this kind of realization that you want to grow even further. And this is where people start looking at, how do I put in better systems and processes, and looking at scale and leverage. What's been your approach, especially for a guy that has 3 different hats? You're spending time working at this venture firm, you're teaching at a university and business school, and you're also running a consulting firm. So just best practices or tips that you might be able to offer to people who have established consulting businesses, they want to go to that next level. For you, what has worked? Has it been team? Has it been certain systems, processes, technology? What's your approach?
3 things have worked, Michael. One is early on, it was systems. As I mentioned earlier in our conversation, I'm a pretty darn organized person. And look, I don't have any secrets that anybody else doesn't have. It's just I use Evernote like a professional. Like I'm an insane Evernote guy. I can tell you every conversation I've had for the years and years, and I know exactly how to find it at a fingertip. Cloud folders, whatever your choice is, Dropbox, iCloud, whatever. Mm-hmm. I have all those incredibly well organized. I also have my favorite right now, my favorite CRM is HubSpot. I can track every single thing. I have spouses, partners, I have phone numbers, I have everything in HubSpot. That helps me be organized. That's level 1. That's the foundation. Level 2 is of scaling a consulting firm is having support around you. And again, I think this is obvious to your audience, but it's worth talking about for a minute. As I grew my business 10 years ago, I realized it was funny. I went through this period of time where I'm embarrassed to admit, I was like, I don't need any assistance. I can book a flight faster than I can tell somebody to book, ask somebody to book a flight for me. Like, why would I do that? And I, again, had good mentors that said, Craig, come on. You've got to let go of some of that stuff and get support around you. And thank goodness at some point I finally got through my hard head and listened to them. And now I actually have a handful of people across 2 organizations that support my ability to be in the right place at the right time with the right stuff. And that has been incredibly helpful. Then the third stage is, okay, do we want to grow this footprint of people like me? So now it's not support. Now it's let's replicate the really cool stuff that we think we do and the differentiated aspect of it. That is obviously, I'm sure a lot of your people are, again, rolling their eyes or nodding their heads like, yep, this is a really tough question. What my advice, and I don't know that it's super satisfying advice, is always be on the lookout for someone who could be a junior version of yourself and start mentoring them, even if it's an arm's length mentorship, even if they're doing another job or have another role with a different company. Bring them in to be opportunistic. I literally have asked clients, Michael, can I bring someone to shadow me in this deal? You're getting 2 brains for the price of 1. So you can't believe how nice people are about that. Of course you can bring someone, Craig. That's fine.
Right.
I've never had someone say, no, you can't bring another resource, even though you're sort of quote unquote training them. And that is a great way to start to think about, could this be Michael and Craig's business instead of just Craig's business or instead of just Michael's? Gets more interesting.
Definitely. One final question here for you today, Craig, and that is, I'm sure that your fees have increased over time. How about the fee structure that you use? I mean, what does that look like today, and how does that compare to what your fee structure was early on?
Fees have gone up significantly, and that's, of course, a wonderful thing. It's driven completely by demand. So as demand goes up and supply goes down, that is, classic economic force. It really, really drives prices up. I think what may be more helpful here, Michael, in this context is I teach a little session on pricing. Mine is not a pricing class. I'm no pricing expert. But what I do is I draw a little matrix on the board, and I say and the matrix just has 2 vectors, quality and price. And I always say to people, if you're starting a consulting firm, where are you on quality? Are you low quality? Which is an option. I mean, you can be low quality. Are you medium quality or are you high quality? And guess what everybody answers? They always say, well, I'm high quality. Mm-hmm. I have this Kellogg education or whatever. I'm high quality. And I say, great. Then by definition, you should be high price. And that's where I get pushback because they're like, no, Craig, I'm nobody. I'm high quality. Like my deliverables are high quality. Nobody knows who I am. And I say, so that's where sales comes in. So a salesperson can create value and justification and differentiation around price when they have a high quality product, even if that high quality product is unknown. That's what salespeople do. That's what we're really good at. And so what I encourage consultants to do, if you are high quality, wherever you are on that quality spectrum, chances are you're high quality. If you're high quality, then you must by definition be high price, and don't apologize for it. Sell into it. Sell into it. Make sure that you are really crisp and clean about why you are a high price. I actually think it is just as easy to sell a high price as it is a low price.
And do you come up with your pricing and your firm's pricing based on a daily rate, an hourly rate, overall project, or more of a ROI value-based approach?
We're super lucky, Michael. So now 10 years in, we really only sell large projects. We will on occasion sell by the day, but we really drive up the price because we think of ourselves as high quality. And so we invest in that. I don't arrive at a day without knowing a heck of a lot about you and having spent time with you, even though it's a quote unquote day, but that day tends to be very, very expensive. So we sell now buckets of days and they're trending larger and larger, which is really rewarding. It also causes a problem because it causes a supply problem.
Sure. Well, Craig, I want to thank you again for coming on here. This has been great to get your insights and experience for everyone on the Consulting Success Podcast show. What's the best way for people to learn more about your work and to connect with you?
First of all, thank you for the opportunity to talk about this. I hope you all can tell. I mean, this is one of my favorite subjects, so I love talking about it, and thank you for the opportunity to do that. Best way to reach me is we're on the web at salesengine.com. So just like it sounds, salesengine.com. And then obviously on all the social, I'm LinkedIn, Craig Wortmann, which is W-O-R-T as in Tom, M-A-N-N. So man with two N's, Wortmann, Craig with a C. And so you can find me there. You can find me through Sales Engine, and that'll get right to me. So if people have questions, we'd love to join our community. The one thing, Michael, I would log roll for a minute is literally 2 days ago, we launched my new online course through Coursera, which is really fun. So that there's free versions of that. There's paid versions. So that's not necessarily a sales pitch. It's just, there's 67 videos. There's a lot of stuff. We worked really hard since last year on it, and it just launched. So we're super excited.
Nice.
That's on the Coursera platform called The Art of Sales.
That's great. Well, we'll have all of this linked up. Just head over to consultingsuccess.com, type in Craig's name, or head over to the podcast page, and you will find Craig's podcast with the full transcript and all links so that you can connect with Craig and learn more about his outstanding work. Craig, thank you again so much.
Well, thank you, sir. Stay in touch, and I wish you all the best.
Sounds good.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Success Podcast. For more episodes and to subscribe, rate, and leave a review, head on over to iTunes. And if you'd like to develop consistent lead flow and a highly profitable consulting business, learn more about our coaching programs at consultingsuccess.com.